Hello and welcome to this episode of Neighbors Cooking. I am your chef and host, Mitch, the Recipe King. And today we have a terrific recipe that we're going to be doing for you and also a terrific guest. So first of all, the recipe. When I was working on tonight's recipe, I had to think about my guest because he's a home chef and he loves to cook Italian food. So not that Italian and French are even close, but a little bit. And having been trained with the Cordon Bleu, I decided that I needed to cook something maybe from my early culinary days. And I wanted something that was delicious, easy to make, and also helped bring us into fall. It's finally cooling down here in Palm Springs. I think we were at 7 degrees today. I don't have to ask my guest, he's a meteorologist also. But so I decided to do a French onion soup takeoff. So when I was in culinary school, French onion soup was one of the things we learned to first make. It was one of the easiest things we could make besides all the sauces that we had to learn. And when I first started school, all the sauces were just overwhelming, but a French onion soup was always something you could look forward to enjoy. And the longer you simmered it and the longer you saved it, the savory and the flavors just came through even stronger. Now, we don't have time on a 30-minute show to do a French onion soup, so we're going to do something that has all of the flavors, simple ingredients of French onion soup, but we're turning it into a pasta. And I'll go over all those ingredients in a minute. But before we start, my guest today is somebody that we've all enjoyed watching on television, Eye on the Desert, KESQ's news, watching him give us our weather forecast when it's hot and when it's cold and when it's windy and when it's not. And I have been trying to get him on the show for over a year. And finally, he stopped cooking on Wednesdays, and I'm able to get him on the show. So I'd like to welcome to the show today my guest and an amazing community person, Patrick Evans. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm great.
Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm so excited about this recipe.
Well,
I'm starving.
You're starving. Good. Two good things. So you are our local KESQ News meteorologist.
Yes.
And you also do Eye on the Desert.
Yes, sir.
And I've not been on your weather show, but I've certainly been on your Eye on the Desert show.
You have many times.
Many times. I know when I need something, I'm like, Patrick, put me on the show. And I may ask you again before Pride happens. But he is a constant community advocate and is always out and about and has been a mainstay. How long here?
23 years.
23, almost as old as me.
Rapidly approaching. Yeah, I started in August of 2002.
At KSQ?
Well, we were CBS, and then we merged with KESQ in 2012. But they're a nice company. They gave me credit for all the time served.
Well, that's nice. So, so what's our weather today? Great weather?
Yeah, and you mentioned we hit about 78, 79 for the daytime high.
Yep.
It was fantastic.
It was a beautiful day.
By the way, the average high is 92, so we're way below average. It's phenomenal. So,
I got it this morning. It was chilly.
I know. It was down. We got down to about 55 in Palm Springs, 56. So it was quite chilly this morning. So French onion pasta sounds perfect.
Doesn't it sound delicious? So how long have you been doing Eye on the Desert?
Also about equally as long.
Wow.
There have been some other. When we first launched, there was another host, but he got bumped up to main anchor.
Okay.
And I took over Eye on the Desert. And then I've kind of moved around over the years. So there were a couple of, I've taken hiatuses, but over the 23 years, I've done Eye about 19 out of the 23 years.
And I know you're all familiar with Eye on the Desert. It's everything that's happening with an eye on the desert, right?
Yeah, we're really a community-focused show. It's arts, entertainment, philanthropy. So obviously we've had you on to talk about Pride. In fact, last year we had you on to talk about the call for volunteers.
Yes, and I'm going to ask you again.
Okay, all right. Happy to do that. But we need to have you on to talk about your cooking.
I would love to
Neighbors
do
Cooking,
that.
Like it should be
a spot.
It should be a spot on Eye.
I would love that.
Because you always have, I saw the one with the Chief Mills and his wife, and they're wonderful.
They are so wonderful. And Kathy came on, and we did a vegetarian dish because she's a vegetarian.
So I donate dinners to charities, and we auction them off, and then I go and cook them. She was one of the guests. She and the chief were one of the guests at my most recent dinner. So I had to really rearrange my menu because usually it is not a vegetarian menu, but we worked it out, and it was wonderful.
Well, this really would be a vegetarian meal that we're making tonight. You could add protein to it, of course, if you wanted some shrimp or some chicken. But I just like the basic French onion soup.
I do too. And it already smells so good. The garlic and the onions just sitting here.
So I'm going to go over the ingredients for a minute with our guests and with our audience, and then I'm going to have you start over here on this side of my stove, and we're going to start sauteing onions.
Okay.
So I'm going to go over the ingredients. We'll get this pan a little warm, and if I can invite you to come over here, and
Absolutely.
we'll get started. So let's go over the ingredients that we have in our recipe tonight. It's very simple. If you've made French onion soup before, you can make this. We're going to use about 5 tablespoons of butter, unsalted. So people ask me, what's the difference between salted and unsalted butter? It's in the name. There's no salt in unsalted butter. And the reason you use unsalted butter is because this recipe has salt in it. So you're going to add salt in, and if you use salted butter, it just increases the salt flavor. So you want to kind of control your seasoning. And French onion soup has such basic flavors in it that you don't want to use salted butter. So unsalted butter. We're going to use really 4 or 5 large, fresh garlic, minced. Some salt, some pepper. I've got some Sauvignon Blanc wine. You want to have a dry wine for this. We're going to slice up 3 onions. I'm going to use my mandolin today because I got stitches not that long ago in my finger from being too much of a fun chef. And actually, it was late night eating. I got up in the middle of the night hungry, didn't turn a light on, and started slicing French bread, actually, and sliced my finger. So we're going to use the mandolin just for safety tonight because my finger's not working so well. We're also going to put in some fresh thyme and salt, pepper, garlic, and I've got some caramelized onion broth that's also going to go into it. And we're using this because when you're cooking French onion soup, it actually takes a while for all those flavors to develop. So I'm using an already slow cooked and caramelized onion base beef soup for it. We're going to add some garlic bread at the end, and that's it. So I'm going to get to slicing first. Like I said, I'm using my mandolin. I'm not quite sure why it's called mandolin. Do you know why it's called a mandolin?
I do not know.
I don't know. My idea of a mandolin's from Henry VIII when they play,
If you talk about cutting your finger, I've seen people do that with the mandolin if they're not careful. That's dangerous.
Right. So always use the piece of the tool that comes with it because it's meant to protect your fingers. And you're going to put this on a very thin slice. And you could slice this up, but you really want thin slices because this is meant to wrap around the pasta that we're using. And I normally use fresh pasta. We're using this dried pasta, which is a cavatappi, which is the spiral pasta. And we're going to get that spiral pasta wrapped around all the onions, and it's going to create this amazing dish. So let's start with just, getting our onions. Where's my, there we go. All right. And when you're using the mandolin, you're just applying pressure to the piece, and you can see I'm not too worried about the few extra pieces that fall off. And you'll save your finger a hospital visit and probably about 6 stitches. But I will say, kudos to Eisenhower Health, who got me in and out in like 90 minutes.
That's a record. That's a record.
I was like, dang. I walked in, there wasn't a single person in the emergency room, which is highly unusual. And they took me right in, stitched me up, and sent me on my way. And I was like, wow. So thank you, Desert Regional, for doing that. So Patrick, I'm going to give you this butter.
All right.
And you can put it in the pan, and we're going to start to caramelize these onions. This is probably the longest part of the process for this dish because it takes a few minutes to caramelize onions. Let's might turn that down a little. All right. And then we're just going to put all these delicious onions.
Put them right in.
Separate them up. There we go. Little spattering just means love in the kitchen.
That's right.
And maybe a butter burn. So what's your favorite thing? I know you like to cook Italian, clearly.
I do love cooking Italian dishes, but even with this, with its very French forward, it's still a very simple dish. That's what I love about most Italian dishes.
Yep.
Because you have a handful of ingredients, and they just all combine for this really simple and lovely dish.
Right.
This is a little more complex that you picked out tonight, and the caramelization is nice, but you're adding in some other wonderful flavors like the thyme and so.
So I've kind of adjusted this recipe today because typically you would do it in one pot. So what would happen is you would caramelize the onions in the bigger pot, and you would add in my recipe that I listed, we added in a cup of water and then actually 32 ounces, a whole box of the beef bouillon, because you're going to cook the dry pasta in the pot. And so we're kind of doing it a little bit different just to have speed and time, because
Right.
it's going to take about 10 minutes probably for those onions to caramelize, and you can turn that up if you need.
Yep.
And we've already cooked our pasta, so we're just going to add it in when we get this all done, and I'll probably actually end up throwing it in here. So I'm going to take some of this pasta out because I think I made too much. But that's okay.
No such thing as too much pasta.
There is not such thing as too much pasta. So I'm just going to
Never heard of that.
put some of this back into my strainer. That'll give us lots of room. There we go. So what brought you to the desert? You've lived here a long time, clearly.
Yeah, I've been here for 23 years, but I was working, I lived and worked on the East Coast
Yep.
for most of my life. I was born in New Jersey and grew up in Virginia, and I always wanted to come to California. My father was a professor, and we spent some time on the West Coast during his summer hiatus, and I just fell in love with it.
Okay.
And so finally, I got a gig. A friend of mine started working at a place called the Orange County News Channel. It was in the basement of the old Orange County Register.
Okay.
And it was a little TV station that served just Orange County. And I worked there for a couple of years. I moved out late 99, early 2000. Worked there for a couple of years, and we managed to put that joint out of business. And about that time, Jackie Lee and Jim Houston were opening up the CBS affiliate here, and they reached out and said, hey, would you consider doing a startup? And I said, yeah, sure, 100%. And so that's how I ended up in the desert.
And here you are.
Came to work with Jim and Jackie Lee, which was an amazing experience because, you know, I got introduced to the world of philanthropy through Jackie Lee Houston. She would, you know, she'd buy 3 tables to every event.
Right.
And then she'd come down to the newsroom and she'd go, I remember the very first time she came down and she came up to me and she says, are you busy Saturday night? I said, well, I don't think I have any plans. And she said, do you have a tuxedo? And I said, well, yes, I do. And she goes, well, I'd like you to come.
You know, our valley, there are so many amazing philanthropists in our valley, and that are such giving individuals, and it amazes me. I just graduated last year from Leadership Coachella Valley. In fact, I think one of your associates at Channel 3 is in the class this year.
There are several.
Oh, are there several?
Yeah,
All right.
there are several. Katie Boer, or even
Katie, yes.
and I think a couple of other people, or at least one other person's in there.
You know, that experience, and she'll come away with the same experience, is so enlightening when you learn really how our valley works and operates, from the water table to electricity to gas to farming. It helps you bring together this vision of what our valley is and how it all just blends together, and it's really incredible.
It's, you know, I think everybody should do that if they have the opportunity.
Yes.
I think Leadership Coachella Valley does such a great job of kind of laying out the framework
Yes.
that we all sort of work within.
Right, because when you're a resident here and you don't understand all the inner workings, how our water table works, where our water comes from, the spring water, how we utilize it, how we control it, it's amazing. You know, I think a lot of people think that all of these golf courses and things that we keep so green, we're wasting water, but we're using recycled water, brown water.
Vast majority, and we're moving closer and closer to using recycled water for all of those purposes other than potable. You know,
Yes,
you've got to
yes.
get rid of the potable usage for that sort of thing.
Yes.
And they're doing a really good job. All of our water agencies are working really hard on that.
They are, and you know, and I know we have this desert landscape thing here. In my community, we've got a lot of grass, and unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of the grass here in the next few years because they're making us get rid of it.
Yeah, new state law.
Yeah.
So the areas that are not, I can't remember the exact term, but it's basically useful grass. Like
Right.
If you're not actively,
Like a park
if
or a
it's
golf
just
course, or
decorative,
yes,
it's got to go.
it's going. And I'm going to miss my front yard. I'm very upset about it, but maybe I'll put in fake grass. I don't know. So, how did you get into meteorology?
You know, I've always been fascinated by science and weather in particular. And when I started working at a television station when I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
I worked for a little TV station in my hometown of Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, and I would go in every day after my classes in high school, and I just kind of fell in love with the newsroom environment. And so when I started my work at the University of Virginia, I studied political science and environmental science.
Okay.
And so by the time, just the year before I graduated, I was actually working at the TV station as both a camera person for the evening newscast and the weekend weather person.
Well, you know, when I started my show, I actually was using, like you do in your kitchen, my cell phone. And I was I had a couple of cameras, and I was trying to control the cameras and talk and cook it all at the same time.
I love the setup that you got now. I walked in, I'm like, man, this is really
right?
nice. This is great.
But it's funny because as the show developed, so did my team. And I was in a Top Chef competition a few years ago from my house, and it was an online with Chef Carl Hall. And Joe, I called him up and said, could you just come and film for me just once? And here he is 2 years later, my camera operator and director, and he does an awesome job. He keeps me on track. He forgot my cheese. So one of the ingredients we forgot is Gruyère cheese. So this is what we typically would put into a French onion soup when you're making it. So I'm going to grate some of that up real fast. So did you have to get education on meteorology, or did you just?
So my degree is, as I said, is in political science, but also environmental science.
Yep.
And environmental science is primarily meteorology, but my work, I did a lot of work with climate study as well.
Okay.
And I actually worked in the Office of Climatology at the University of Virginia for the state climatologist there. So I did a lot of meteorology and climatology work. So I was pretty well prepared for the world of forecasting weather.
Because I think people always wonder, is it just something, are they reading a script? Of course they are, a little bit. But,
well, here's the one thing about weather. There is no script in weather.
okay.
It's just like this show. It's all ad-lib.
Yep.
The work that we do behind the scenes is to build all the graphics that you see. We do that in-house. And that serves as our script.
Okay.
You know, and that's the story. And our job is to develop the graphics that make the most sense and to tell the story of the weather of the day.
So you're on a green screen when you're doing that.
Correct.
And are you looking at a monitor off to the side?
There's a monitor directly in front of me.
Okay.
Because again, we don't use a teleprompter, so I don't have the teleprompter. I have instead a monitor.
So you see yourself.
I see myself.
And you see the map that's projected on the green screen.
Yep. So I can see everything that's going out over here just the way you see it at home.
Okay.
And there are monitors off to the side as well.
Okay.
So it takes a little, you just need to work.
Because you have to work the reverse of what you,
exactly.
yeah.
It's just a little eye-hand coordination, but you get used to that. I think really the hardest thing for me, when I first started working, we wear an earpiece.
Yep.
And our producer talks to us in our ear, and they will talk to you during your newscast, basically just giving you cues.
Right.
But that sort of thing. But occasionally they have to tell you something, and it's really hard at first not to repeat what they say.
Because you're hearing it. They're like,
like,
look to the left, look to the right. Yeah.
So.
Camera 2, camera 1.
Yeah, you're getting used to that, and being, someone talking in your ear while you're live on the air.
Well, when I first started doing my show, even though I was, a very experienced chef, I was very nervous not having my recipes in front of me so I could read them.
Right.
And so I started off actually in the old days with a step and repeat with these really long, big printed, the letters were this big in front of me. And you could tell I was reading them. It was just awful. And then I went to a monitor for more complex. So I've got a monitor here in the kitchen. You guys can't see it, but I'm not using it. But if it's a more complex recipe,
You put that in there.
I'll plug in my ingredients so I don't forget, like the cheese. So look at these onions. Look how beautiful those are.
They're beautiful. I think they're almost ready.
So we've got those all nice and brown. So now we're going to add our garlic. So we're going to mix that in there. And when you're using thyme, if you're not familiar with thyme, thyme is an herb that grows on a stem. You don't want the stem, so it's a very fragile herb. So you're going to grab the top of the stem, you're going to gently pull down, and all of the leaves will come off. Very simply, sometimes not as simply as that, but thank goodness for this presentation, they came off nice and easy. Try not to get any stems in, but if you do, it's not going to kill anybody. They might get a little bit of wood flavor for a minute. But just by the fresh thyme that's in the box, we've got this entire block of Gruyère cheese that we've made, or not made, we've sliced up. We're going to add some salt and some pepper into this.
All right. Beautiful.
Salt just helps to absorb some of that moisture that's in the onions, because we want these to be, we want them really to start, well, they're doing beautifully. And then we're going to add our half cup of Sauvignon Blanc, and we're going to let that boil, and it's going to almost boil completely down.
All right, so we're going to reduce that entirely.
We're going to reduce it. So when you're out and about, you know, it's always funny to me because now I go out. I've been doing this so long in town, and people know me. And I go out and they go, "Oh, I know you from." I'm like, cooking show, and then they always say, "No, the Palm Springs baker."
Not that guy.
Not that guy. They're like, "You bake stuff." I'm like, "No, that's the baker."
That's the other guy.
But I'm trying to get him to come on the show so we can do a joint show. I think it'd be fun.
That would be terrific.
It would, but he gets some amazing guests. I don't know how he gets the guests he gets. Like Chad, Lance Bass, and Lucy Arnaz. And I mean, it's just crazy the list of guests that he gets. I don't know what his background is, or if he's paying them. I bet he's paying them. I don't think so, no. I just think he's well connected. But I would love to have him come on the show. So, Palm Springs Baker, you've got an invitation.
Come on, Chuck. Come on the show.
Come on the show. Let's cook together. You can make a creme brulee, and I'll make something French also, and we'll have a great dish. So that's coming together beautifully.
It's coming together really nicely.
So we're going to start adding some of our beef broth.
Okay.
And we're just going to let it kind of cook and come to a boil.
Right. It's at a nice temperature.
Nice temperature, and I want to just give it a little taste to see how the flavor is developing. Almost just like French onion soup. I need a little more pepper, I think. A little bit more pepper, and let's put a little more salt. Whoops, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
That was garlic. Where's my salt? Here we go. There we go. We'll let those flavors develop a little bit more. And when we get all these flavors pulled together, we're going to add this amazing Gruyère cheese, and it's going to create this creaminess, and we're going to add the pos in, and then we're going to eat. So,
It's my favorite part of every recipe.
it is my favorite part, you know. I loved watching you when you were doing your show. Like I said, I was a little jealous. I'm like, he is competing against me on Wednesday nights.
I always did it earlier.
You did do it earlier.
I know you never divide an audience.
No, you did do it earlier because I was watching before I started my show just to see what you were doing. But I think cooking in the kitchen and bringing people over and bringing, you know, we've got a house full of people here today. And it's so much fun.
Well, cooking brings everybody together.
It does.
You know, I think the two, you know, really unifying forces in the world, music and food.
Food is
Brings
love to
people
me.
together.
It's a love of community. It's a love of storytelling, and it's where all the stories happen in families.
Absolutely.
You know, the memory that you have, food memory and music memory are two things that just stay with you forever.
You know, I'm sure that you had memories of the way your mom's kitchen smelled.
She was a horrible cook.
Oh, well,
No, I actually taught her to cook because I'm like, I got to learn to cook. When I was young, The Galloping Gourmet was on television.
Oh, yes, of course.
Graham Kerr. And so I would come home from school and watch what he was making and write down the recipe, and my mom would take me shopping, and we'd buy the ingredients, and I would make dinner that night. And I was like 12 or 13 years old when that started, and then pretty soon it was just, you're too good, Mom doesn't want to cook anymore, and we were all like, thank you. My mom was British, all my family's British, and so Brits eat very bland food. It's overcooked meat, overcooked vegetables, you know, fried and sauteed. It was just horrible. So, you know, that's why I learned to cook, was because I just couldn't stand my mom's food. But, bless her heart. But, you know, when we're talking about music, when my mom was passing away, actually, she was in the hospital, and she'd been unconscious for a few days, and my dad was an amazing singer. And he would sing these beautiful English songs, and I had one on my phone, and I played it next to her, and she smiled, but was still dead to the world, in a coma, but she smiled when she heard the song, and that's the last thing I remember with my mom. And so that alone was inspiring to me about music. So let's add some of this cheese.
We're going to add in the Gruyere here.
The Gruyère, however people want to say it. And we're going to mix that together. And if it gets too thick, we're going to add, so this is about 8 ounces, about a cup.
Okay.
There we go. And I'm going to grate up a little bit more to add to the top when we serve it. Always got to have a little more. So how long have you been married?
My wife and I have been married, we're coming up on 8 years.
Oh, okay.
We've been together for 10. And we met, she is an attorney in LA, and she was out here on a girls' weekend. And you remember when Davy's Hideaway became Bernie's?
Yes.
So she was just having a cocktail with a friend at Bernie's, and I went in to see my buddy, the piano player, there, and we ended up meeting there.
Wow. Never know when you're going to meet the next love of your life.
And I took her over to Melvin's because
They had better music and food.
Well, there was the piano player who was working at Bernie's, he quits at 9:30, so, and like literally at 9:30, he could be in the middle of a song. I'd be like,
Right.
Strangers in the night. He'd say, oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9:30, thank you.
Thank you.
Gone.
Good night. Hey, you only get paid till 9:30. You're done at 9:30.
Done it, that's right. Oh, look at that. Now see, that cheese is just
The cheese is starting to
melted beautifully.
melt.
It is
Looks delicious.
totally incorporated into your sauce here.
So let's get a little bowl here. I would mix it. I'll mix it. I'm going to mix it in a bowl. Just for the sake of dramatics. All right. Let me get a dish to taste it with. And a fork and a spoon. Because you're going to be my taste tester the first bite.
Okay, well, I look forward to this.
Or you might not. It depends.
It looks phenomenal.
Doesn't it look beautiful? So we're going to take some of our pasta, put it in a bowl, and we're going to take our sauce all off. There we go.
Want that off?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to mix our sauce in. Maybe a little more pasta. So as you can see, we've got this beautiful cavallati pasta. We're going to get these onions to wrap around some of the spiral pasta. Give it a good mix.
Look at that.
And we're going to serve it up. It's already getting a little too thick, but that's all right. Whoops, excuse me, Benny.
Watch out, Benny.
There's always an accident with Benny in the house. Oh. Let's use this instead. All right.
Try a little cheese.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to put, it's got a little bit clumpy. So maybe we should have added a little more of the broth, but that's okay. It's going to taste just as delicious. You can see the string of the cheese. I think Joe can see that. All right. There we go. Stringy cheese. Whew. Cheese everywhere. All right. Let's make this look a little nicer. We'll put a little bit of thyme on top. A little bit of extra cheese. And Mr. Patrick, you will be our first taste, and you can look right at that camera and take your taste, and everyone can see you eat.
Right. Let's just give this a little swirl, get our sauce mixed in there. All right. Fantastic. The
Good.
sweetness of the onion, the tanginess of the cheese, and it just all works.
Yay!
That's beautiful.
You heard it from the expert, all right?
That is beautiful.
So that wraps up our show tonight. I want to thank Patrick for coming and being on the show. Thank you so much. Appreciate
you.
everything you do in our community for us. And to all of you out there, I appreciate your time coming and spending it here in my kitchen. I look forward to you coming back next week. And until then, remember, there's always a seat for you at my table. Have a great week.